Do you struggle with ADHD? Do you have ADHD? And what can you do about lots of the different symptoms so that ADHD doesn't run your life in the wrong direction, so to speak? I have had ADHD my entire life, and I know most of my clients have ADHD also. And I've seen both how it can be an absolute superpower, but also how it can hold you back and how it can make you struggle. In this episode, I'm going to break down the different types of ADHD, some of the key struggles or components and things that happen when you have ADHD, what you can do about it, and why people struggle with masking and what to do about masking. First of all, let's look at the different types of ADHD. There are three types of ADHD: hyperactive, inattentive, and the combined type. Hyperactive type are people who are restless, fidgety, have very high energy, lots of excitement, feel quite impulsive most of the time, and have this boundless ideas, energy, enthusiasm, high hyperactive type. Then inattentive is more daydreamy, get distracted, forget things quite often, lose track of what people are saying, sort of lost a bit in their own minds, and struggle to stay focused on something. And the combined type, both is hyperactive, so has high energy, lots of enthusiasm, but also gets lost, distracted, forgetful, and has the distracted type. That's why we generally say the ADD is the inattentive type and ADHD is hyperactive and distracted. One of the core myths that I've seen around ADHD is this idea that it's only because we have lots of tech and the way that everything, there's so many distractions and notifications on the phone, or that you eat sugar, that you have ADHD. I used to believe these myths and thought, okay, I'm quitting sugar, I don't use my phone a lot, then this weird, hyperactive, distracted brain of mine will calm down. That isn't the solution, full stop. Now, it does help to be less on your phone and to quit eating sugar and processed food. That absolutely helps with most things in life, but it doesn't change the fact that the brain is wired in a certain way. ADHD is something that you have, your brain is wired that way. If you quit sugar, use less your phone, meditate, all of these things, it will help you a lot, but your brain is still wired in a certain way. So I want to make that point clear, that it's not this sort of fake this fake sort of diagnosis. It is something that people have, and I'm pretty sure if you put them in the jungle without any phone or sugar or whatnot, they still would have a slightly hyperactive or distracted tendency, because it's just the way the brain is wired. Basically, all it is that we get less dopamine, so sort of dopamine sensors aren't as sensitive, we receive less dopamine, so we need more dopamine, and the way we get that is by being distracted, doing lots of different things, having high energy, and lots of ideas, and trying lots of different projects. And this is what gets us excited and gets our dopamine level sort of back to a regular state. This is a blessing and a curse. Having had ADHD forever, I can tell you that it has helped me to pursue a lot of creative interest. When I tell people all my hobbies and the piano and singing and painting and knitting and dancing and all these things, people are sort of a bit thrown on top of running the business. But it also has its drawbacks. I want to be very clear that both of them are present. And it's not a matter of being a victim of having ADHD and feeling that it's something that's holding you back always in life, because that will not help you. That's not a useful perspective. But it's also not useful to only see it as a superpower and something that helps you forever in life, because obviously there are certain challenges that need to be managed. So what are some of the core symptoms or some of the core things that happen when you have ADHD? Impulsivity, forgetfulness, distraction, struggle to stay focused on just one thing. All of these things that many people struggle with in sort of small doses are accentuated. One of the things that I started to realize is that I can't hold things in my brain for a very long time before I forget them. So I might think, oh yes, I'll need to pick up that package later, and 5 minutes later I've forgotten. That's why I write everything down compulsively. I keep track of everything everywhere, because otherwise I'll forget it. So that's the forgetful aspect. But impulsivity used to happen a lot, and I used to shop or buy something just impulsively because I liked it and it appealed to me, or sign up to a class. Or I remember when I was working on the boats at the time and spontaneously just wrote an email and signed up to guitar lessons, or quit my career at sea to start my own business as a coach. A lot of people called that brave, and I was thinking, yeah, but it was sort of a bit impulsive in many ways. Now, the positives of these things is generally people with ADHD are more likely to take risks because the impulsivity and also the dopamine kick, which means that in business, that can be a positive thing. Because if you're too risk averse and you don't want to take any risks, then you're not trying new opportunities, you're not putting yourself out there, you're not experimenting as much. So actually taking risk up to a certain level can actually help you in your business and can help you to grow. So those are some of the core symptoms. I want to also specify I am not a qualified doctor in this field, so if it's something you want to have an official diagnosis, then do see a doctor about this. But just overall understanding some of your core symptoms can really help you to also have a bit more self-compassion. Because this is something I want to talk about. This is something I've seen with all the people that have high ADHD, is there's a high level of guilt, of imposter syndrome, of not feeling worthy, and constantly feeling that they need to beat themselves up for not being better, for not showing up, for not being as consistent as they want to be, for not being the sort of person they would like to be, because everything sort of gets messy and chaotic. And I struggled with the harsh, self-critical voice for 3 decades or more. And I know what it's like to have that voice in your head always beating you up, telling you that you're not good enough, telling you that you've underperformed, telling you that you need to do better next time. And the truth is, that's not the most effective way to get yourself to perform at a higher level. Because I've tried both routes. I've tried the highly self-critical, never good enough, beating yourself up, the stick route. But I've also tried the carrot and the reward. And you're doing great. And this could be even better. And we're doing the best you can. And trying that more self-compassionate approach. And what I've seen is when you're overly self-critical, at some point it gets you down. At some point you'll find yourself crying or exhausted or super upset because nothing you do ever is good enough. It never really meets the standard that you want. And because also of this high excitement, you get really excited, get really hyped up at the beginning, and so you'll decide you'll do whatever it is, a marathon or the equivalent in your business, and then you can't follow up with it, or you struggle, or you lose the momentum and motivation really fast, like super fast. And they thought, oh, I had all these dreams and ambitions and desires, and I lost motivation. I got discouraged. And when that happens, then of course the self-critical voice gets louder and louder. Now, if you shift it to self-compassion, what you'll notice is it's difficult at first. It's quite hard to shift at the beginning from this high self-critical to self-compassion. But with practice, speaking to yourself as you would to your best friend, one of my closest friends always told me that she noticed that I was really hard on myself because I would voice my sort of internal dialogue, and I would say, oh, but Katie, you need to do this and that, and I would voice it, and she said, but Katie, self-compassion. And after a while, what had happened is I would hear her voice in my head, Katie, self-compassion. I would think, yeah, okay, I did the best I could. Now I'm going to do it better. I forgive myself for my mistakes. I know there's room for improvements. And when I started to do this, a lot of weight left. I didn't feel as much pressure. I didn't feel that high weight, that high pressure we put on ourselves, and things felt lighter. And when things are lighter, you can move with more ease, with more joy. You can feel more connected with yourself, with the world, with other people. And it became so much easier once I stopped being so hard on myself all the time. So I invite you to give that a try. If you've tried already, try again, because self-compassion really is quite a magical tool when it comes to overcoming that self-doubt and that self-critical aspect. But moving on from, we've looked at the different types of ADHD, some of the struggles we have now, self-compassion, and let's look at masking before we look into the different tools that can help with ADHD. Masking is super important because masking comes down to you trying to come across as neurotypical, which is quote unquote what people call normal. No, I'm not sure what normal means, instead of seeing that you have ADHD. And we often do this unconsciously. It could be anything from stop fidgeting, because if you're fidgeting all the time, that's weird, to interrupting people. You might not want to do that, so you stay calm and you don't interrupt. or you lower down the vibe. I know that I always feel like, speaking loudly or laughing or doing these crazy things. I live in Sweden, we don't do these things. So you learn to speak more calmly and more quietly and leave more time and not interrupt other people and stop fidgeting. But also it goes further than this. You start to mask all of the things that you feel a bit off or weird or too much. Many people with ADHD feel that they're too much. And as you do this, you're diminishing everything that's you, because that's just the way you are. That's how you function. And so you're trying to sort of blend in. This is why it's called masking. You're trying to blend in to come across as normal so that you're not rejected by your peers. It's a perfectly logical, biologically, anthropologically, because when we were in the caves, we definitely wanted to fit in with the tribes next to us and probably our own tribe. So we're meant to want to fit in and belong. And that's probably why, and I don't know if that's your case, most of your friends are neurodivergent in one way, shape, or another. I realized that most of my friends were pretty much neurodivergent. Guess what? You don't need to mask. You don't need to speak more slowly if your friend is speaking really quickly. You don't need to stop interrupting if they're interrupting you all the time. You don't need to stay really calm if they're fidgeting around and dancing and moving or always on the go. You can be more yourself because you no longer have to mask. Now, the problem with masking is if you're constantly repressing a lot of what you are, which is probably high energy, a lot of emotions, a lot of ideas, a lot of distractions, a bit scattered, quite chaotic, and you're constantly masking this, what happens is it kind of works. You can become really organized, you can become a lot calmer, and you can become someone that doesn't come across as someone with ADHD. But it comes at a cost. You start to disconnect from who you really are. You start to not know anymore what's really you and what's not. It sort of gets a bit confusing. You start to develop even greater imposter syndrome because you are putting on a persona, because you're not allowing yourself to be fully you. And what can also happen is the ADHD finds an outlet somewhere else. You might find yourself self-sabotaging in the business because you want this outlet for this dopamine and this change. You might find yourself compulsively tidying and reorganizing all the time to come across as tidy and organized and perfect because you're so desperate to fit in. You might develop addictions or OCD as a way of compensating. So all these things happen when we're masking instead of just allowing ourselves to be who we are and just be ourselves and stop pretending that we're this neurotypical normal person when we have this creative craziness. And what's funny is that I realized with a lot of my friends who have ADHD, I like their fun craziness. I don't want them to be all like normal neurotypical people. I want them to tell me they're taking art lessons at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, or that they've just dyed their hair red, or that it's mayhem in their household with all the different things that they're doing, because it's fun and it's relaxing and it's enjoyable. Now, if you're a neurotypical person listening to this, maybe you won't get it, or maybe you have a lot of friends who have ADHD, so you'll know what I'm talking about. But it is a bit of a different brain, and it's a bit of a different way of processing and seeing the world that also has a lot of perks. That's also highly creative, highly innovative. There's a lot of amazing things that happen with ADHD. And if someone could come and take it away from me, I probably would quite like to pause it sometimes, if we're honest. But if I could take it away fully, I probably wouldn't want that, because a lot of the things I've managed in my life, a lot of the experiences I've had, from all the different creative outlets to speaking 5 languages, to running the business, to filming 400 videos, have all been linked to some form of ADHD. And once you know those patterns, you can no doubt see it in yourself or in other creators that have a lot of content and these things. You can feel the sort of ADHD-ness behind it. And so those are some of the things that come with it and the importance of masking. Now, if we look at tools will be highly dependent on what you struggle most with. Some of the tools that I know are extremely useful is, number 1, meditation. When you practice meditation, what happens is you strengthen your prefrontal cortex. This changes, literally physically changes your brain, and it will help with memory, with decision making, with focus, with emotional management, all of the things that people with ADHD struggle with. I remember when I started meditating regularly, I wasn't fully aware, or I was ignoring the fact that I had ADHD. And I just remember thinking meditation solved all of my problems. I remember thinking it's really helping with everything. I'm so focused and I can think more clearly and my emotions are calmer. Yeah, because those are all the struggles of people with ADHD. So meditation, I would say, is probably the number one tool I would recommend, simply because we're very fast. People with ADHD, very fast, fast thinkers, fast actors, decision making very quickly, and there's not much space to process all of these ideas, all of these thoughts. So if you meditate, you're creating that space and you're changing your brain. So it really helps to calm you down and to make you think more clearly. So that would be the first tool. The second one is find a structure that works for you within your work or within your career. Now, ADHD and structure, it's a bit of a love and hate relationship. ADHD and structure is a bit of a challenge sometimes. We love it because it really helps with avoiding analysis paralysis, with getting motivation, momentum, but it also can quite feel suppressing and blocks the freedom and the creativity, and we don't always like it. So it's a fine balance. But I have realized that things like time blocking, Pomodoro, most important task first thing in the morning, all the different tools that I've spoken about when it comes to productivity and conscious productivity do help. If you can start your day with your most important task without checking any emails or the phone or any messages, and just do that one important task, it really does set you up for the day, to have a productive day, to be more mindful the rest of the day, to start the day with the win. These things help. And it's the same with time blocking. One of the other symptoms that I didn't mention when it comes to having ADHD is time blindness. You struggle with seeing how long something has taken, if it's been a long time or not a long time, and get quite confused when it comes to managing your time because of this time blindness. What you can do is the time blocking and time tracking. Start to see how long certain activities take you so that you're able to monitor, okay, in the future it takes me 2 hours on average to write a blog article. Let me block out 2 hours, 2 hours and a half in my calendar to write that blog article. Then of course you need to do it. Now this just comes from practicing, discipline, motivation, listening to your favorite music, tuning yourself in, taking a cup of tea. At the beginning, building those new habits and routines, it's always a bit of discipline and motivation, but after a while they do become easier. It does become a bit more of an automatism to follow what you've actually put in your time blocking, even though ADHD are known for being quite rebellious. So when that happens, well, once in a blue moon, yes, you will become rebel and not follow your time blocking and go against it. But if you can do it more regularly, it will probably help in some ways. It will also help with you feeling better about yourself, because we have a lot of this guilt tripping because we don't feel that we're consistent or following through or organized. So when you do that, a lot of the time you do feel better about yourself. Just that slight structure, the time blocking, the odd Pomodoro for the focus, and really doing one thing at a time. Now I've spoken a lot about this, the Focus B, right? The Focus B show. I speak a lot about being focused and single tasking, and that's because too much input we actually do quite well with. Because of the ADHD, we actually can manage a lot, but it's exhausting for the brain and it really raises the cortisol. And even though we can probably manage it better than maybe neurotypical people, it's also too much information and we're more likely to forget things and get distracted. So practicing and building that muscle of doing one thing at a time can be extremely, extremely beneficial. One of the other tools when it comes to forgetfulness is using alarms. Now, I'm always using alarms on my watch, both to remind myself to take my vitamins or when I have a call coming up, or to not forget what times I need to leave. And practicing, whether it's with your watch or with a phone, having alarms for key moments is something that I know most ADHD people do in one variant or another, because it helps you to just remember. Now, of course, super important, you might still remember 90% of the time, right? We're not like totally memoryless, but it's just we're slightly more forgetful generally than people that are neurotypical, and therefore it's just an extra like backup. If you forget that day, the alarm will remind you. It's just a reminder, and it can just help you to relax and think, okay, you won't forget. It's sort of a backup concept. And then there's so many other tools when it comes to the self-compassion, things around journaling, goal setting, having clear boundaries is super important because it's very easy for people to trespass their boundaries and not learn to say no and not keeping that space, because also of this overcompensating, the masking. You're trying to overcompensate a lot of the time because of feeling inadequate, which often happens with ADHD. So those are all of the sort of different things taken into account. What you need to look at is what is the one you struggle most with? What are some of the things you struggle most? Is it taking action and motivation? Maybe find an accountability partner. Is it forgetfulness? Then put on the different alarms. Is it discipline? Then read a few books on discipline, build that mindset, that muscle, practice with physical training, because sports really helps with building the mental mindset, motivation, and discipline also. Impulsivity, then have like a no, for example, shopping months, this sort of thing. So I've done these phases where, to curb some of my over impulsivity, I would do different things like write down all the ideas but don't act upon them, or write down the things I want to buy this month but don't get them. And that trains the brain to be like not super impulsive. I want to do this and I do it now. I first started doing this when I was working still back as an engineer, and I would have so many ideas during the day of things I wanted to look up and Google, and what I started to do was have a little notebook and I would just write them down. I thought I'll do it later after work, because otherwise you never get any work done if you're just spending your life Googling things. And what would happen is at the end of the day, I would look through the list and maybe one or two things I still wanted to look up, but the others had gone, because it's that impulsive mind, that quick sort of dopamine rush. I want to do that one thing to get that dopamine rush, but actually you don't really want to do it. So if you practice the impulsive tracking, we could call it impulsive tracking, that's a new name, impulsive tracking. Track down the things you want to do impulsively, and then you can see afterwards, is it a valid idea, or is it something you really need to look up, or is it something you really want to buy? Because it doesn't have to be something you need to do, but on the moment, trust me, I know it feels like this huge urge, and you need to do it like as if when you're really hungry, like you need to do this now. My husband always says, like, with you, it's always now. That's because we want that dopamine rush immediately from even getting things done. I get it with getting things done. I want to do this now, so it's done. And that's a similar thing. So impulsivity tracking, so that you can see and monitor, is it really worth your time, your energy, your money, or can it wait? And you'll find that the more often you do it and the more space you leave in between, the more you realize maybe you don't need that thing at all, or maybe you don't need to put time or energy in that activity or idea. So just something to think about. So those are all of the different sort of tools that you can use to manage different things. But remember, self-compassion, different brain, different way of functioning, it doesn't work the same as everyone else. So don't try and be a neurotypical person. Don't try to be a square when you're a round peg, right? Don't fit yourself in other narratives. Don't compare. Don't compare, right? Don't compare either with the people who are neurotypical or with the ADHDers like Richard Branson, who've achieved being a billionaire, and think, well, he managed to become a billionaire. Why am I struggling? Different people, different lives, different journeys. But it is inspiring to know that there are people like Richard Branson, Mel Robbins, Michael Phelps, who all have ADHD and who've managed to be extremely successful. So don't let it hold you back in your journey. You've got this. You can do it. Highly creative. Remember, all the superpowers that come from having ADHD. Don't let it hold you back. But equally, monitor the things that are getting in the way. And there are lots of different tools and lots of different processes that can help you. My name is Katie Stoddart. If you're new to this show, I work as a high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders, specifically who struggle with also ADHD. If you're interested in being coached by me, please fill in the form below. I work with a selected group of individuals to support them to thrive in their business and their life. Thank you so much for tuning in. Any questions, any comments, please put them down below in the comments. I answer each and every one, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts, your ideas, your questions. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.